one's own daughters. I know I can never understand. And all for the sake of Cousin Collins? Why should he get it more than anybody else?
Well, I leave it to yourself to determine.
You to observe the entry, famed entrance hall, gateway to roses. Fine proportion of the finished ornaments. I believe you will agree are most imposing. Observe, here is fair Lady Catherine herself, the jewel of roses. Sound advice and good instruction are her own. As you will see, she is most imposing.
Are you?
In spite of having lately been presented at St. James and various establishments, I have courage only just to make a low bow and cannot speak one word to pay my compliments.
Who are
timid voices these days. I do not see the point of saying anything unless you enunciate clearly.
We are so very grateful and exalted for the honor of your invitation.
Be quiet, man. This is not Sunday pulpit. Do not dominate the conversation. That honor belongs solely to me. Whatever I say is said in so authoritative a tone as to underscore my self-importance. My manner is not soothing, and I take care to ensure that you never forget your inferior rank. Pedigree means everything to me, especially now when I'm surrounded by the wretched, reaching, wretched lower classes. And so time passes.
Pedigree means everything to me, especially how one behaves in the upper wealthy landed privileged classes. And so time passes,
And you will agree that everything changes except pedigree.
semantically,
It's the difference in a short-legged dog and a corgi.
it's the random disbursement of spots on poor Rover.
Or the particular placement of dots on the coat of Dalmatian Paris.
Oh, she means Paris. Oh, that makes me think of Napoleon. Where is he? Let me at him.
Father. This is the name of her dog. He's a Dalmatian.
That is not a dog. That is a poodle.
Observe the spot.
Intellectually, it's in the voice, the nose, the walk.
It's in the knee.
It's simply being what you're being when you're being what you're born to be.
Your ladyship, Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy and Hal Fitzwilliam.
Oh, wonderful. My nephews have arrived. Did you hear that? Darcy and Fitzwilliam are here. Come along, come along. Come along.
Lady Catherine.
Oh, Fitzwilliam. Say hello to your cousin Anne, Darcy. They are destined for each other. From the cradle it was decided. It was his mother's dearest wish.
Madam, Anne seems unwell.
Anne is always unwell. If she were well, she would be in perfect health. Miss Bennet, how many sisters have you?
I have 4 sisters, Lady Catherine.
And are they older or younger than yourself?
I have 3 who are younger and 1
Upon my word, you give very decided opinions for someone so young. Are your sisters handsome? Are any of them likely to be married? Where were they educated? What sort of carriage does your father drive? And, pray tell, What was your mother's maiden name?
It was Gardiner, your ladyship.
Garden. Garden.
Has your family been well, Miss Elizabeth?
Yes. Very well, I thank you, Mr. Darcy. My sister Jane has been in London these 3 months. Have you not happened to see her?
All days are nights to see until I see thee.
What was that, Darcy? Speak up, do not mumble.
No, I have not the pleasure of meeting Miss Jane Bennet.
Oh, what has become of the sad business of James? I cannot find out whether she sees anything of Bingley, or whether he is ever coming back.
Please, excuse me, your ladyship.
Well, I never.
Oh, that Mr. Bingley is a very detestable man, and I dislike him immensely. I will always say that he used my daughter ill, and my one consolation is that she will likely die of a broken heart. And then he will be sorry for what he has done.
As I said earlier, you'll have a charming mother-in-law indeed. And what hall at Pemberley do you intend on hanging her portrait of Mr. Darcy? The dining room, perhaps? Or would you prefer the great hall?
Two of the fairest stars in all the heaven, having some business to entreat her eyes to twinkle in their spheres till they return.
And do let the portrait of your aunt and Uncle Phillips be placed next to your great-uncle for judge. They're in the same profession after all, only in different lines.
Miss Bennet, do you play the pianoforte?
A little, I'm afraid, and very poorly.
What are you speaking of, Miss William? I must know what Miss Bennet is saying to you.
We are speaking of music, madam.
What if her eyes were there, they in her head? The brightness of a cheek would shame those stars as daylight doth a lamp.
Oh, you are speaking of music. It is of all things my favorite subject. If I had ever learned to play, I should have been a great proficient. And so would Anne, had her health allowed her to learn. I insist you play for us, Miss Bennet. Mrs. Collins tells me you are tolerably good.
Oh, truly.
How does Georgiana get along, Darcy?
And what of the Gardiners?
Darcy?
Your Uncle Gardiner was by trade in noble dedication, for here he resides within view of his own warehouses.
Darcy, I am speaking to you.
Pull yourself together, ma. Georgiana.
Yes. She gets on extremely well, thank you, madam.
I am very glad to hear it. You may tell her for me that if she expects to excel on the pianoforte, she must practice a great deal.
Do you mean to frighten me, Mr. Darcy, by coming in all this state to hear me? Well, I'll not be alarmed. My courage always rises with every attempt to intimidate me.
I've had the pleasure of your acquaintance long enough, Miss Bennet, to know that you sometimes take great delight in professing opinions which are not, in fact, your own.
It is ungenerous of you, Mr. Darcy, to mention all that you knew to my disadvantage in Hertfordshire. And, give me leave to say, impolitic too, for you are provoking me to retaliate, and such things may come out as will shock your relations to hear.
No, I'm not afraid of you.
Come, I would like to know how he behaves himself among strangers.
Well then, prepare yourself for something very dreadful. The first time of my ever seeing Mr. Darcy was at a ball where gentlemen were scarce, and to my certain knowledge, more than one young lady was sitting down for want of a partner. And what do you think he did? He absolutely refused to dance. Mr. Darcy, you cannot deny the fact.
Perhaps I should have judged better had I sought an introduction, but at the time I did not know any lady in the assembly beyond that of my own party.
True, and no one can ever be introduced in a ballroom.
I am ill qualified to recommend myself to strangers.
Shall we ask him why? Why a man of sense and education who has been brought up feel qualified to recommend himself to strangers?
It is because he will not give himself the trouble.
I have not the talent which some people possess of conversing easily with those whom I have never seen before.
My fingers do not move over this instrument in the masterly manner which I see so many other women's do, but I have always supposed that to be my own fault, because I would not take the trouble of practicing.
Neither of us perform to strangers, then.
Darcy, of what are you speaking? I must take my part of the conversation.
Darcy would prefer to assist Mr. Berg.
Miss Elizabeth, I will see you later, cousin. Come, Cousin Anne. Talk about the grounds.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Darcy. You're too kind.
I am actually very, very kind.
Mr. Darcy's fault, the propensity to hate everyone.
And Miss Elizabeth is to will
He seems a pleasant gentleman, and I believe he's a great friend of Darcy's. In fact, on the journey down, Darcy congratulated himself on having recently saved a friend from the inconveniences of a most imprudent marriage. Although he mentioned it without names or other particulars, I suspect it to be Bingley.
Did Mr. Darcy give reasons for his interference?
I believe there are some very strong objections against the lady. Miss Bennet, are you unwell?
Oh, no, thank you, Colonel. I'm quite well. I am only thinking that I do not see what right Mr. Darcy had to determine and direct in what manner his friend was to be happy. Though, perhaps there was not much affection in the case.
Perhaps.
We cannot judge since we do not know the particulars.
Certainly.
And perhaps he wished to save Mr. Bingley for his sister.
Perhaps. Good evening, Miss Bennet. I take my leave, reluctantly.
Good night, Colonel. Wretched, conceited, arrogant. Oh, Mr. Darcy, who does he think he is? What right had he to be the judge? To Jane herself there is no possible objection. Full of loveliness and goodness is she. Neither her manners nor her morals warrant progress or correction. And her mind is also excellent and very womanly. Likewise nothing can be urged against my father, who though with definite peculiarities has abilities that even Mr. Darcy can't sustain, and who far exceeds that wretched man's respectability. How dare he? She is my own, my flesh, my blood. How dare he? My own dear sister, I love. What of my mother, what of her? Her lack of sense alone could not him mortify. But rather he's disgusted with our insignificance, and is ruled by his own arrogance and insufferable pride. Mr. Darcy,
Did I startle you?
this meeting is most unexpected, sir.
I apologize, but I did not dare wait. Miss Bennet, you must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you. You must know, you must see that your inferiority, the degradation of your birth, the obstacles of your family and breeding is significantly against you. Yet, it will not do. I must assure you of the strength of my attachment, which, despite all of my best endeavors, I have found it impossible to conquer. Miss Bennet, will you now reward me with the acceptance of my hand in marriage?
Mr. Darcy, if I could feel gratitude toward you, sir, I would now thank you, but I cannot. I have never desired your good opinion, and you have certainly bestowed it most unwillingly. I'm very sorry to have caused you pain, and I hope it will be of short duration.
This, then, is all the reply which I would have the honor of expecting. I might inquire why with so little endeavor at civility I am thus rejected.
And I might inquire why, with so evident a desire of offending and insulting me, you chose to tell me that you liked me against your will, against your reason, and even against your character. Was this not some excuse for incivility if I was uncivil? But you must know that I also have other provocations. Do you think that any consideration could tempt me to accept the man who has been the means of ruining, perhaps forever, the happiness of a most beloved sister? Can you deny that you have done it?
I have no wish of denying that I did everything in my power to separate Bingley from your sister, or that I rejoice in my success. Towards him I have been kinder than towards myself.
But it is not merely on this that my dislike of you was founded. Long before it had taken place, my opinion of you was decided. Your character was unfolded to me in the recital which I had many months ago from Mr. Wickham.
You take an eager interest in that gentleman's concerns.
Who that knows not what, but why and how his misfortunes have been can help but feeling an interest in him.
His misfortunes, yes. His misfortunes have been great indeed.
And of your infliction.
This, then, is your opinion of me. This, the estimation in which you hold me. I thank you for explaining it so fully. Perhaps your bitter accusations might have been suppressed had I flattered you into the belief of my being impelled towards you by unqualified, unalloyed inclination.
You are mistaken, Mr. Darcy.
But disguise of every kind is my abhorrence.
You are mistaken. You merely spared me any concern which I might have felt in refusing you had you behaved in a more gentlemanlike manner. Your selfish disdain for the feelings of others, your arrogance, your conceit. I had not known you a month before I felt that you were the last man in the world whom I could ever be prevailed upon to marry.
You have said quite enough, madam. I perfectly comprehend your feelings, and have now only to be ashamed of what my own have been. Forgive me for having taken up so much of your time, and accept my best wishes for your health and happiness. Do not be alarmed, madam, on receiving this letter, for fear of it containing any of this evening's sentiments which were so disgusting to you. 'Tis my character alone that requires this letter be written and read. I had not been long in Hertfordshire before I saw that Bingley preferred your elder sister to any other young woman of his attention. I observed my friend closely. Your sister I also watched. And I saw that, well, she enjoyed Bingley's attentions. Her own feelings did not equal his. Furthermore, the situation of your mother's family, though objectionable, was nothing in Bingley's situation in comparison to that total want of propriety so frequently displayed by your mother, your three younger sisters, and even occasionally by your father.
You, Mr. Bingley, you're not
We dressed the table enough on purpose for a joke. To ask for a lady.
That will do, child. You'll delight us long enough.
With regard to that other, more weighty accusation of having injured Mr. Wickham, I can refute it only by laying bare before you the whole of his connection with my family. My father was very fond of George Wickham from the time he was a youth.
Well, George, how are you getting on with your studies?
Mr. Darcy, when I study, I think only of pleasing you, and how my own dear father is indebted to you for your care of me.
Ah, you're a good boy, George, and I will see to it that you are well taken care of.